Hello, I'm the Biblical Translator, and today I wanted to talk to you about a dream I had last night. Now, I hardly ever remember my dreams, but over the last week or so, maybe a bit longer, I've been remembering some of my dreams. So, I'm not sharing them with you because I think they are prophetic or some mysterious message from the universe, but I do believe that our minds can put ordinary things together in a way that gives us something worth thinking about. So, I'm sharing them with you because I believe the message that they uncover. So, last night, the dream that got me thinking about how we deal with change, expectations, and things we feel we owe other people. That was the general overall vibe I got from my dream. In real life, I had arranged for someone to come and paint a wall in my studio, a dado rail and a banister. But in the dream, the person who was actually painting my wall wasn't the person I had commissioned to paint it. And the interesting part was that the person I hadn't asked to paint the wall had chosen a colour that matched the wallpaper perfectly. And I remember thinking, that looks really good. The strange thing was, I wasn't thinking, who told you to do that? I was actually wondering, how much is this going to cost me? Is he expecting me to pay, or is he simply doing the job as a favour? Those questions weren't answered in my dream. My instinct in the dream was that he seemed to be doing it as a favour, as though someone had sent him to do it to save me money. But it still worried me, just in case there was a hidden charge. Then my mind moved to the person I had originally contracted to paint the wall, and I was wondering how I was going to tell him that I didn't need him anymore. Then I woke up and I wondered if this was really about painting a wall, or did it have more to do with something many of us experience in everyday life? What happens when experiences change after we've already made an arrangement? We can make a decision based on what we know at the time, and then something changes. We meet somebody different. We discover another option. We change our mind. We realize that what we originally thought we needed isn't what we need anymore. And sometimes the difficult part isn't making the new choice, it's telling the person connected to the old choice. We can feel guilty. We can worry about disappointing them. We can start looking for a complicated explanation because we feel that simply saying, I've changed my mind, isn't enough. But sometimes it is enough. Now, obviously, in real life, we have to honour agreements we've made. If there is a contract, a cancellation charge, or work that has already been started, that's a different matter. Being considerate doesn't mean ignoring our commitments, but there is a difference between honouring an agreement and believing that we are permanently tied to a decision simply because we once made it. A decision is supposed to serve the situation you made it for. If the situation changes, sometimes the decision has to change with it. And then there was that other part of my dream. The unexpected person had done something I hadn't requested, but it fitted perfectly. Someone does something differently from the way we expected, and our first reaction can be, that's not what I asked for. But sometimes we need to pause before rejecting something simply because it wasn't part of our original plan. There is a difference between something being wrong and something simply being unexpected. We shouldn't accept poor work just because it's unexpected, of course, but if something genuinely works, perhaps we can allow ourselves to appreciate it. Then there was the question of the payment. I didn't know whether I was going to be charged. That part really made me think about how quickly some of us can assume that everything has a price attached to it. Somebody helps us and we immediately think, what do I owe them? Somebody is kind and we wonder what they want in return. Somebody does something generous and we become uncomfortable because we don't know how to receive it. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should be naive. We should still have boundaries and common sense, but there is something quite freeing about recognizing that not every good thing comes with a hidden bill. Sometimes people genuinely want to help. Sometimes people take pride in doing a good job. Sometimes somebody does something simply because they can. And perhaps we need to become better at receiving without immediately feeling indebted. I also think this dream speaks to someone very human, or something very human. Our concern about how other people will feel when we make a decision that affects them. We can spend so much time trying to soften somebody else's disappointment that we forget to be honest with ourselves. We don't want to be rude or hurt anybody, nor do we want to look unreliable. So many of us stay in situations, arrangements, friendships, relationships, or commitments longer than we actually want to, simply because we're frightened of what happens when we say this is no longer working for me. But changing your mind isn't automatically being selfish. Sometimes it is simply being honest about new information. We are allowed to learn. We are allowed to reassess. We are allowed to say, when I agreed to this, that was what I wanted, but things have changed. And this is what I want now. And I think there is an important lesson there for all of us. We shouldn't make promises carelessly because other people may organise their lives around what we have said. But equally, we shouldn't treat every decision we have ever made as if it's carved in stone. Life is not static. We are not static. We learn things. We see things differently. We sometimes discover that the thing we thought was right for us isn't right for us anymore. And sometimes, completely unexpectedly, something comes along that fits better than what we originally planned. My dream didn't give me an answer about how much the unexpected painter was going to charge, and perhaps that was the point. Maybe I wasn't supposed to know. Maybe the lesson was simply to recognise that I was happy with the result, while my mind was busy worrying about obligation and expectation. And I think many of us do that in real life. Something good happens, and before we've even enjoyed it, we're calculating the consequences. Somebody offers us an opportunity and we're already worrying about whether we can say no later. We make a choice and then spend more time worrying about somebody else's reaction than considering whether the choice is actually right for us. So perhaps the little lesson I took from my strange decorating dream is this: be responsible, be considerate, honour genuine commitments, but don't confuse consideration with obligation. Don't be so frightened of changing your mind that you stay committed to something that no longer fits. And when something unexpected turns out to be good, don't reject it simply because it wasn't part of the original plan. Sometimes life doesn't arrive in the colour we ordered, but that doesn't necessarily mean it won't match the wallpaper. And perhaps we can learn to look at the unexpected, ask ourselves whether it genuinely works for us, and then make a decision from there. Because at the end of the day, learning isn't just about discovering new things. Sometimes it's about giving ourselves permission to change our minds when we discover that we need something different. And I think the biblical scripture that aligns with this is Proverbs 16:9. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. This can be understood as a reminder that we make plans based on what we know at the time, but life doesn't always follow our script. And this is really pertinent to me because I like to think I have so much integrity. So when I make a promise, I want to commit to it no matter what. And then sometimes it's to my detriment. Sometimes if I commit to a particular relationship because I thought it was right for me, and then I find that that person is taking advantage or doing whatever it is they're doing, and then I still feel committed to that promise I made at the beginning, which was based on that person's words and what I thought that person's character was. And I was in such a dilemma on how to get out of that relationship because I'd made a promise. So what this is saying to me, it's freeing me up. It's saying that things can change. The promise you made then, if it doesn't work for you now, it's okay to change your mind. And so I'll leave you with those few words. And in the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of each other. And that's all for now. Until the next time. I'm the biblical translator. Ciao.